To get revenge for his fallen friend, an elderly man decides to hunt down a gang that even the police are afraid to touch. He goes to his best friend Leonard's place, and from inside the room, he quietly keeps watch, tracking the daily movements of Noel and his crew. That day, Noel and his men are hanging around their usual spot near the tunnel. They harass people walking by, and they even humiliate a young couple who just happens to pass through. Watching it all, the man's anger boils over. To him, this is way past kids causing trouble. This is predators running the streets, and right there, he knows he cannot keep waiting. It is time to move. And the man watching them is Harry Brown. Later that night, Harry shadows one of Noel's gang members, a guy named Kenny, as he heads into a house believed to be one of their transaction spots. Once Kenny goes inside, Harry walks up and knocks like he belongs there. The door opens, and he is greeted by Streech, Kenny's friend. Harry calmly claims he is there for business, but the second he steps in, Kenny snaps a gun up at him, convinced Harry is an undercover cop. Harry can feel how close this is to going very wrong, so he quickly improvises, giving them a reason that sounds ridiculous, but just believable enough. He says he needs a firearm to deal with pigeons that keep landing on his roof. It is a goofy excuse, but it works. Kenny and Streech ease up, and they lead Harry deeper into the house. That is when Harry sees the real setup. Behind the main rooms, there is a large grow space, a full indoor cannabis farm, thriving inside a greenhouse they maintain illegally. And it gets worse. In their lounge area, Harry spots a young girl lying weak on the couch. She looks barely conscious, clearly used and discarded by the gang. Harry, unable to ignore it, urges them to take her to a hospital. The gang brushes him off and warns him not to stick his nose in their business. Not wanting to stay there any longer than he has to, Harry starts pretending to shop, acting like he is carefully choosing from the weapons Kenny offers. Kenny, excited to show off, explains ranges and features like he is a professional. Harry plays along, listening closely and nodding as if he is learning something new. But Harry is not some clueless old man. He is a former Marine, and he understands weapons better than any of them. The whole act is just a trap, a way to get them comfortable, a way to make them drop their guard. And the moment the opening appears, Harry moves. He pulls out a combat knife and drives it into one thug's hand, disabling him instantly. Then, before anyone can properly react, Harry opens fire. Kenny goes down, and so do the rest. In seconds, the house turns into a slaughter zone. When it is over, Harry makes sure nobody's left standing. Then he grabs gasoline, splashes it through the place, and sets the entire hideout on fire. He does not hesitate. He wants their world to burn exactly the way they have been burning everyone else's. Harry carries the girl out and gets her away from there. He drops her at the nearest hospital entrance, slips a thick wad of cash into her hand, and disappears into the night before anyone can stop him and ask questions. While all of this is happening, the city police are preparing for a major meeting. They are planning a large-scale operation to arrest the gangsters involved in illegal drug and weapons trafficking. The raid will be led by Alice's superior, the same department that has been handling Leonard's death. In fact, her boss orders Alice to put Leonard's case on hold and focus on the upcoming operation instead. Meanwhile, Harry continues carrying out his mission on his own. Day and night, he keeps a close eye on Noel's gang, carefully watching their movements and waiting for the right moment to strike. One day, while the gang members are gathered near the tunnel, Harry notices a bald man approaching them. The man carries himself with authority, and the other gangsters clearly treat him with respect. After arriving, he calls over one of Noel's men, a guy named Marky, and signals for him to come along. What they do not realize is that Harry has been observing everything from a distance. Without warning, he suddenly steps out and shoots the bald man dead. Chaos breaks out instantly. In the middle of the confusion, Harry manages to capture Marky and drags him into an empty room where he holds him captive. Inside that room, Harry pressures Marky to reveal the names of the men responsible for killing his best friend. At first, Marky refuses to say anything, but when Harry makes it clear that he will not hesitate to kill him, Marky finally gives in. Instead of speaking, he hands Harry his phone. On the phone, there is a video recording. When Harry plays it, he is forced to watch a horrifying scene. 6 men surround Leonard and brutally attack him. They beat him mercilessly, then stab him again and again until he dies. Watching the footage, Harry can barely contain his grief. The pain quickly turns into rage as he sees his friend treated with such cruelty. Burning with anger, Harry demands to know which one of them delivered the fatal stab. Not long after that, back at the tunnel where the gang usually gathers, Noel and several of his men are relaxing with their girlfriends. Suddenly, they are startled when Marky appears, walking toward them with his hands and feet tied. The gang members are confused and begin trying to figure out what is going on, but Marky urgently tells them to leave immediately, warning them that the man who brought him there is armed. They barely have time to react before gunshots suddenly echo through the tunnel. Harry emerges from the darkness and opens fire on the gang. A violent shootout erupts inside the tunnel. Several gang members drop almost instantly, but one of them manages to fire back, hitting Harry before escaping the scene. Harry tries to chase him, but only makes it a short distance. The gunshot wound finally catches up with him, and he collapses onto the asphalt. The hunt is far from over, but now Harry knows one thing for certain. The names of the men who killed his best friend are finally in his hands. But to truly understand how everything reached this point, the story has to go back to the beginning. Sometime earlier, a video recording had been circulating among the gang members. The footage shows a group of gangsters initiating a new recruit. At first, it looks like nothing more than a reckless display of bravado. But the situation quickly spirals out of control when the new recruit starts acting wildly while holding a gun. They begin shooting at anyone who happens to be in front of them. Even a mother walking through the park while carrying her baby becomes a target. The gunfire kills the woman on the spot. Realizing the horrifying thing they have just done, the gang members immediately flee the scene. The next morning, a middle-aged man named Harry Brown wakes up in his quiet home. From the radio playing in the background, a news report talks about a brutal shooting carried out by a group of gangsters. Sadly, this kind of violence is nothing unusual in the neighborhood where Harry lives. Crime has become part of everyday life in the area, and the police seem overwhelmed, struggling to keep the growing gang activity under control. After finishing his breakfast, Harry prepares to visit his wife at the hospital. She has been in a coma for some time, and visiting her has become part of his routine. Not far from Harry's apartment, there is a tunnel that serves as a shortcut to the hospital. However, that tunnel is also a favorite gathering spot for local gangsters. Rather than risk running into them, Harry chooses the longer and safer route. When he arrives at the hospital, Harry cannot hide the sadness on his face as he sees that his wife's condition is getting worse. Later, Harry stops by a local pub owned by Sid Rourke. While ordering a drink, he is approached by his close friend Leonard Atwell. The two of them sit down and begin playing a quiet game of chess, something they often do together. During their game, two gangsters walk into the pub. One of them is a man named Kenny. Right there in front of everyone, they casually conduct a drug deal. Leonard notices it and quietly tells Harry that Sid is not the good man Harry believes him to be. According to Leonard, Sid has been taking bribes from Kenny. That is why he never reports the gang to the police, even though Kenny is involved in more than just drug dealing. He is also selling weapons and exploiting underage girls. Hearing this, Harry quickly tells Leonard to lower his voice. He does not want his friend attracting unnecessary trouble. In Harry's mind, it is better not to get involved with people like that. That same night, Harry's sleep is disturbed by noise outside his apartment. A group of gangsters is trying to break into a car parked in the courtyard. They even attack the owner of the vehicle, leaving the poor man lying helpless on the ground. Harry watches the scene unfold, but he chooses not to interfere. He knows he is an old man now, and stepping into that situation could easily make things worse. Sometime later, while Harry's asleep, he suddenly receives a call from the hospital. The doctors inform him that his wife's condition has become critical. In the middle of heavy rain, Harry rushes out of his apartment and heads toward the hospital. Even in such an urgent situation, he still avoids the dangerous tunnel and takes the main road instead. The longer route costs him precious time. By the time Harry finally arrives, it is already too late. He never gets the chance to say goodbye to his wife before she passes away. A few days later, Harry is seen standing quietly at the graves of his wife and his child. Leonard comes to visit him there. Harry is clearly devastated by the loss of his wife. Now the only person he has left in his life is his best friend, Leonard. As usual, the two of them later stop by their favorite pub. There, Harry talks about his younger days, when he served as a soldier in the military, and how he first met the woman who would become his wife. It turns out Harry was once one of the best soldiers in his unit and had received several medals for his service. But the conversation takes an unexpected turn when Leonard suddenly asks whether Harry has ever killed anyone before. The question catches Harry off guard. In the end, he simply reflects that the man he is now is very different from the man he used to be. Before heading home that night, Leonard opens up to Harry about the fear he has been living with. Almost every day he is harassed by the local gangsters. They bully him constantly, and at one point they even threw a bag of filth that hit him directly in the face. To cope with the intimidation, Leonard reveals that he has started carrying a knife, hoping it might give him the courage to defend himself if things ever get worse. Seeing how shaken his friend is, Harry tries to calm him down. He advises Leonard to stay patient and report the harassment to the police instead of confronting the gang on his own. Unfortunately, Leonard explains that he has already gone to the police several times, and none of those reports were ever taken seriously. Not long after that, Leonard experiences another terrifying incident. In the middle of the night, while he is sleeping, thick smoke suddenly fills his apartment. He wakes up coughing and struggling to breathe. It turns out the gangsters have burned trash right outside his front door, deliberately trying to scare him. Furious, Leonard storms outside and angrily confronts them. The next day, Harry receives an unexpected visit from two police officers, Alice Frampton and Terry Hickok. They bring devastating news. Leonard Atwell has been found dead inside the tunnel where the gangsters usually gather. The case is still under investigation, but the police strongly suspect that Leonard was murdered. Alice asks Harry about Leonard's state of mind the last time they met. Harry explains that his friend had been extremely frightened, constantly tormented by the group of young thugs in the neighborhood. After the officers leave, Harry is left alone with the crushing reality that the last person he truly cared about is gone. Sometime later, Alice and Hickok arrest a teenager named Noel. He is known as the leader of the gang operating in the area, and the police suspect he may be involved in Leonard's death. As Noel is being taken away in the police car, he casually tells his mother to contact his uncle and make sure he gets out of jail as soon as possible. At the station, Noel arrives with a lawyer and refuses to cooperate with the investigation. It soon becomes clear that Noel is the son of a powerful gang leader who is currently serving time in prison. Noel has every intention of inheriting his father's criminal empire, and he shows no fear whatsoever while being questioned. The police also bring in three of Noel's associates, who are suspected of being involved in Leonard's murder, but none of them say anything useful. With no solid evidence to hold them, Alice and Hickok are eventually forced to end the interrogation. Even though the detectives are convinced these young men are responsible, they simply do not have enough proof to move the case forward. Meanwhile, Harry is left drowning in loneliness and grief after losing the people he cared about most. That night, he sits alone in his usual pub and drinks several glasses of alcohol, hoping it might dull the emptiness inside him. Eventually, he leaves the bar and makes his way home, heavily intoxicated. As Harry walks through the tunnel, struggling to steady himself, someone suddenly jumps out and threatens him with a knife. But this time, Harry does not hesitate. He fights back and plunges a knife straight into the attacker's chest.
Give me your fucking money back!
After returning home, Harry immediately cleans himself up, carefully removing any trace of what just happened. The following day, Alice visits Harry again to update him on the progress of Leonard's case. Unfortunately, the news she brings is devastating. The court has ruled that Leonard's death was not intentional murder, but an act of self-defense by the attackers. This conclusion is based on the discovery of Leonard's knife, which suggests he may have struck first. Because of that, the suspects have been temporarily released while investigators continue looking for more evidence. Hearing this decision leaves Harry furious and deeply disappointed. In his eyes, the system has completely failed his friend. He blames the police for their incompetence, convinced that their inability to do their job properly allowed Leonard to be killed. Not long after Alice leaves, Harry quietly opens an old keepsake box. Inside, he takes out a military knife from his past. Soon after, he heads to Leonard's house, which has now been taken over and turned into a base by the gangsters. From that moment on, everything begins to change. One by one, members of the gang start turning up dead. Violence spreads through the neighborhood as Harry silently begins his hunt. Eventually, the pursuit leads to a fierce shootout one night, leaving Harry himself badly wounded. The next day, Harry regains consciousness in a hospital bed, though he is still weak from his injuries. Alice and Hickok are already there, hoping to ask him a few questions. Before they can get far, a nurse interrupts and insists that Harry needs to rest. She tells the officers to leave him alone while he recovers. Despite the interruption, Alice cannot shake a growing suspicion. She begins to wonder if Harry might somehow be connected to the recent deaths of the gang members. Hickok, however, does not take her theory seriously. Instead, he leaves the room, reminding her that they have a meeting to attend. Later that night, the police prepare to launch a major raid against the local gangsters. Before the operation begins, Alice meets with her superior and shares her concerns. She believes Harry could be the one responsible for the gang members who have been killed over the past few days. After all, Harry was Leonard's closest friend, and the gangsters who died were the same suspects the police had recently interrogated. Once again, her concerns are brushed aside. To her superior, the idea sounds absurd. He cannot imagine how an aging man with asthma could possibly be capable of carrying out such violent attacks. Not long after that, the police arrive at the location where the gang members usually gather. They spread out in different directions and begin their raid. At first, the operation seems to go smoothly. Several gangsters are arrested without resistance, but the situation quickly spirals out of control. More gang members suddenly appear, and they begin fighting back. The scene turns chaotic. At the same time, Harry wakes up in his hospital bed and decides to leave, ignoring the nurse who tries to stop him. Word of Harry's disappearance soon reaches Alice. The moment she hears about it, she becomes convinced that Harry is heading straight for the gang's neighborhood to finish what he started. In her mind, his real target is Noel. And sure enough, Harry soon appears right in the middle of the chaos. Without hesitation, he rushes to retrieve the weapon he had already hidden nearby. Meanwhile, Alice and Hickok arrive at the scene of the riot, but on the way they run into trouble and end up in a car accident. Not long after, Harry finds them and quickly brings them to hide inside his usual pub. Once inside, Harry asks Sid to call an ambulance as soon as possible, but the situation takes an unexpected turn when Alice reveals something shocking. Sid is actually Noel's uncle, which means the man Harry trusts might now be a serious threat to all of them. Even after hearing this, Harry refuses to back down. Instead, he confronts Sid directly, pointing a gun at him and demanding to know where Noel is hiding. Before Sid can respond, Noel suddenly steps out from his hiding place. He accuses Harry of killing two of his friends. Hearing that only fuels Harry's anger. In response, Harry presents the video recording that proves Noel and his gang brutally murdered Leonard. But despite seeing the evidence, Sid is not about to let someone kill his own nephew. At the same time, Alice secretly contacts the police station and calls for backup. In the middle of the tense standoff, Harry suddenly begins to weaken. His injuries and exhaustion finally catch up with him. Seeing the opportunity, Sid grabs the gun and strikes Harry, knocking him down. With Harry temporarily helpless, Noel turns his attention to Alice and attacks her violently. Their plan is simple. They intend to kill both Harry and Alice, then dump their bodies in the street so it looks like they were victims of the riot. Before that happens, Sid moves first and kills Hickok by covering his nose and mouth until he suffocates. Meanwhile, Noel tries to strangle Alice, squeezing the life out of her. But with the last bit of strength he has left, Harry manages to grab his gun and fire. The shot hits Noel and kills him. Almost instantly, Sid fires back and shoots Harry, leaving him unable to move. Realizing that Harry is still alive, Sid walks over to finish the job. At that exact moment, police snipers arrive and lock onto Sid as their target. Harry, knowing his end is near, signals for Sid to finish it. Sid pulls the trigger and kills Harry, but the moment he does, the police snipers fire and kill Sid as well. After several days of police operations that follow, the city finally becomes peaceful again. With the gang leaders gone, the streets are safer, and the people are finally able to live their lives without fear. So the moral of the story is, if you bully an old man long enough, there is a small chance he used to be a highly trained Marine who will turn your entire gang into a retirement project.